foolish enough to believe that we understand everything that's out there. Just straight up, there are things in this world that I will never have the tools to explain. I don't think that that necessarily means that they're paranormal, but they defy my current understanding of normal.
Do you think people in Ellijay are hesitant to openly share their experiences with strange, unusual things?
Not to turn the interview around on you, but how much do you know about the history of Ellijay?
Last time when learning about Bigfoot, we heard a lot of stories about ghosts. So now we're packing up and heading back to Ellijay.
One of the spots that keeps coming up in local ghost stories is the Tabor House. It's the oldest standing family home in Ellijay. It's now a museum and open to the public for guided tours, so we're gonna check it out to hear these stories firsthand and see what we might encounter.
Check. Are you seeing mine?
Hey, how's it going? Doug and Luke. Nice to meet you.
I'm Brad.
As settlers came in, especially when the gold came in, there was a boom of activity.
And that was when we tell the story of the Cherokee removal.
The history of Ellijay is absolutely the history of genocide. Native American removal started here.
We just continually kicked natives off of their land, gave them a little parcel of land, and then kicked them off that land for another one because we kept finding resources that benefited us.
So it's no wonder that we hear ghost stories. You can't have that much bloodshed in a place without something coming out.
So while we were filming with Judy at the Tabor House, one of the staff accidentally walked in during the middle of the take, but it kind of ended up being a happy accident.
That's our gardener. That's Pam the gardener. Have you ever seen any ghosts here, Pam the gardener?
I feel them, but I don't see them.
Do you?
Yes, in the bedroom upstairs.
So this just kind of reaffirmed what we suspected, that there is something paranormal happening in Ellijay.
Florence, are you here? Mrs. Florence.
Last fall, we had Southern Ghost Girls come for the first time, and they brought their equipment to detect paranormal activity. Now, they discovered at least 2 additional ghosts. One of them was a young girl, a young Cherokee girl. Apparently, there was something in the Cherokee room that her spirit was attached to.
Several visitors have said that they feel a presence. It's like every time somebody tells something, it's usually about a little girl and a man that is seen here.
After your experience, do you think there's any validity to people who've come here and say they've seen a ghost?
I never argue with anybody who tells me they saw a ghost, because too many people who are knowledgeable and believable have told me stories.
What about your story?
About 10 years ago, it was on a day like this, and I was in here one rainy afternoon by myself, and a lady came to the door. I'd say she was maybe early 30s, and she was clutching a book to her chest. I don't know whether it was a Bible or a notebook. I couldn't tell for sure. We went upstairs. She got to the Civil War room and just stopped dead, and she said, "There's a lot of energy in this room." She walked around, touched a few things. She said, "Could I be in here by myself for just a few minutes?" And I said, "No, ma'am, it's a guided tour. For liability reasons, I'll have to stay here, but I'll stay in the doorway, and you can look around if you want to." So she stayed in there maybe 10 minutes. And while we were in there, I thought I heard the door down here open and shut. I thought, oh, we're getting ready to close. I got another visitor, so I said, "I'll be right with you." I went downstairs. There was no one here. By the time I got out to the vestibule again, the lady was coming down the stairs from the Civil War room, and she thanked me very much for staying open late for her. And as I was leaving her out the door, she turned and looked at me and said, "Is that your little girl up there?" And it didn't register with me what she was asking me. And I said, no. And she just gave me a big smile and turned and walked out of the house. First thing I thought was that someone came in while we were up in the Civil War room, and maybe a little girl was left here. I checked the whole house out, and there was no little girl. I locked up that day and went home with the hair on my neck standing up.
This was the Wild West in the 1800s. This was the frontier in a lot of ways. And so you had a lot of lawlessness. But there were so many, just drunken brawls, murders, people digging for gold.
There have been a couple other incidences where one or two other stores have ghosts. There was a man shot in a domestic type dispute, and word is that there is still a ghost that is present in that building.
This wasn't the first time we had heard about paranormal activity in downtown LJ, so we're heading there now to see what we can find.
I was wondering if you guys have ever seen anything or felt anything, especially when you're closing up late at night by yourself or stuff like that.
Absolutely, the upstairs. We refuse. We will fight and argue over who's going to go upstairs and lock it up.
Really? Well, how come?
It's just creepy and it feels thick and heavy up there.
I was here closing up one night and I was by myself and I was behind the bar over here, and then the pans on the shelf in the kitchen flew off of the shelf through that window.
Oh, whoa, through the window?
Yeah, and it was only half of the shelf. It's not like the shelf fell.
So when we first started this project, we made a post online asking the people of LJ to submit their paranormal encounters so we could hopefully feature them in this series. We received one email in particular that really stood out. It came in at 3:55 p.m. on October 2nd, 2024. And it goes like this. I used to work at River Street Tavern
in LJ, Georgia. If you ask around town, most people will tell you the place is haunted, but I never believed in that kind of thing. At least, not until it happened to me. I started bartending there a few years back. I loved the atmosphere, the history, the regulars, the way the old building seemed to buzz with energy. Sure, people would mention strange things now and then. Glasses breaking on their own, cold spots, things like that. The older bartenders liked to tell stories about Eliza, a woman who was supposedly hanged behind the building for stealing over a century ago. Some said her spirit still roamed the tavern, but I always rolled my eyes at those stories. But then, things started happening. At first, it was just small stuff. I'd feel this strange chill, like someone was breathing down my neck. Once or twice, I heard faint whispers, my name, but when I turned around, no one was there. I brushed it off thinking it was just my mind playing tricks. One night, after a busy Friday shift, I was closing up alone. The regulars had cleared out and I was just finishing wiping down the bar. I remember bending down to grab a rag when I felt something yank on my apron. It wasn't a light tug. This was hard, like someone was pulling me backward. My heart shot into my throat and I whipped around, but of course, no one was there. My hands were shaking as I stood there, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But the worst part came a few weeks later. It was another late night and I was closing by myself again. I had just finished counting the tips and was leaning against the bar, staring into the mirror behind it. Then, that's when I saw her. A woman, standing right behind me, glaring. She was dressed in clothes that looked old, like something out of a history book, and her face was twisted with rage. I couldn't move. I was frozen, just staring at her in the mirror, and I swear, for a split second, I felt her grab my apron again. I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest, but she was gone. I quit the next day. I still see people around town who ask why I left, and I always give them the same answer. Whatever is in there, whatever Eliza is, she doesn't like being forgotten, and she makes sure to remind you.
Every aspect that has led to these paranormal activities, I think there's just a richness to the story. When we ask questions, they lead to what seems like 100 more questions. But we're just ready to dive in deeper and see where it takes us.
And our next mystery is surrounding LJ's cemeteries. Some people claim to have seen all sorts of paranormal activity and cryptids in these graveyards. And I think we know exactly who to call to help us dig deeper.
At the Tabor House, it's a historic site. What we didn't realize is there's a graveyard right next to it.
There's energy
in these graveyards.
I think we could totally have some beasties out here in the woods. There's not a story anywhere in the Appalachian Mountains that you're not going to find a cryptid.